Hello everyone, welcome back for some more Let's Read Witch on the Holy Night. We've reached what the game says is the climax of the fight between Alice and Aoko, and also Sojiro's here, I guess. We will be seeing how this goes. She was filled with foreboding at the Robin's report. Apparently, they had gone in opposite directions. The park's residents had set off after the boy witness, and it would take them mere minutes to capture him, so the bird said. That would be a huge twist. They switch clothes. Huge, like, always keep them guessing. The robin flapped its wings, chirping away any doubt. It had seen them with its own two eyes. Aoko was headed for the plaza, and the cocky brat was making a run for the roller coaster. The robin nodded enthusiastically. It didn't know about the other birds, but with its superior night vision, it had seen that sucker, clearly because he had moved to a high point. Scratch Dumpty was a ticking time bomb that would drop and detonate the moment its target averted its gaze. That is, as long as his target continued to observe him. In a way, he was a gentlemanly ploy kickshaw, though Alice wished he would forego such niceties when in battle. Oh, so it does double duty. If you look away, it explodes, but also it has a charge that goes over time. Great! Until the park, or rather the Snark, was destroyed, Sojiro would not be able to escape. Which meant the larger concern was Aoko. Aoko had promised to protect the boy, which begged the question, where was she running to? Alice looked out over the park, ignoring the robin's attempt to get her attention away with its plumage. Flat Snark had nearly reached its full size. It was a different breed of beast compared to the other cheap ploys. To her, it was one of the three most irreplaceable and precious familiars. Alice remained where she was. With the same historical merit as the troll under the bridge and the poison-clawed reptile. Poison-clawed what do you mean the poison-clawed reptile? What is that? What do you mean by that one? Well, Flat Snark was one of Alice's ultimate ploys. She was placing her trust in its reputation and ability. Oh, she has to reassure it to not go out of control. The drifting fog ignored its master's words. It was the one thing that Alice had misread. Flat Snark was a king, even among the other ploys, of vulgar, terrible antics. Death to the defeated, gruesome tragedy to the vanquished. It found no pleasure unless it brought about the total ruination of life and wealth. The fog billowed like a wicked laughter. After all, only a king had the right to decide the fate of the vanquished, and the Snark's greed could not be contained. Thus, it hadn't even the slightest intent to play fair, despite its master's orders. Great. Cool. It's out of control. Wonderful. Just what we needed. Over 100 feet high. One careful step at a time, the figure made its way gingerly up the track, stretching into the heart of the amusement park. He stayed his beating chest and the pounding of his breath. Even the tiny movements were an obstacle to his progress. That's beautiful. That sky, though? Amazingly, the one making this pale-faced advance higher and higher was Sojiro Shizuki. Far below, he saw a horde of bread creatures had congregated by the roller coaster platform. As they bustled this way and that, their numbers continued to increase by the minute, seemingly cheering on Sojiro with raised arms as he made his ascent. Or jeered him more like, beckoning him to come down. Bread doesn't like height. Of course, Sojiro neither... What? Of course, Sojiro neither did Sojiro. I think that first Sojiro is a mistake. It should be, of course, neither did Sojiro, but his current state was the lesser of two evils. The only thing that followed him now was the floating egg. After heaving a huge sigh, Sojiro bent forward a bit and climbed the track that reached to the heavens. 150 feet now. If this were a skyscraper, he would be on the 16th floor. A strong gust of wind whipped through his hair. Humans had instinctual fear of heights. It's true. So when people say, "What, you're afraid of heights?" It's like, well, that's one of the most normal things to be afraid of, buddy. In particular, a place like this, which called forth visions of falling to one's death, would cause a person's knees to tremble against their will. It was an instinct that forewarned death, urging its master to return to the safety of the ground. It was a reasonable reaction. Climbing the roller coaster tracks went beyond funny stories and into the realm of fantasy. The strong winds and change in air pressure were a hindrance. His instincts screamed at him to stop, causing his limbs to go numb, his muscles to go limp, and his mind to race. Even if he had been tied to a lifeline, a mere 15 feet of climbing would have caused his thoughts to freeze out of sheer terror. And it would only get worse from here, exponentially so. Every foot forward increased the load on both his mind and his body by another degree. The burden on his mind notwithstanding, he carefully measured the toll on his body with every step. His legs, which had carried him running this far, threatened to buckle the moment he let down his guard. This fatigue was likely why Aoko had stressed that Sojiro's role was more dangerous than hers. Sojiro laughed as he stared at the floating egg. He reflected on the course of events that led to this absurd situation. Not even 10 minutes ago they had been engaged in conversation. They say they know, but they haven't told us, which again proves that it's the correct answer. Sojiro felt a shudder travel down his spine at Aoko's smug grin. In hindsight, Aoko had been more than happy at this point to make him do something absurd. Sojiro had spoken up, figuring that what he was about to say was silly, especially considering Aoko had magecraft to tear clean through the fence. Furthermore, up until now, he had not once offered his insight as to the true form of Flat Snark, only due to his belief that there was nothing they could have done about it, even if they were the wiser. But that had changed. For Aoko, the impossible was quite literally within her grasp. Despair filled Sojiro's eyes. I guess that's what I would call that expression. Aoko lifted a hand to her long hair and, with the magical energy in her fingertip, cut a clean tuft from her head. What? Okay, that just surprised me. Huh. But based on where Aoko pointed her gaze, she did not really mean to leave it to Sojiro to pick the highest place he could find. Aoko was staring conspicuously at one of the amusement park's two main attractions, the roller coaster.
あのうねうね動き出してるコースターのレールとかよくない?
There were two demons in the park. Her smile made even Sojiro want to respond that it was far from perfect.
疑いたくはないんだが、本当はあの子とグルで俺を遠回しに殺そうとしてるんじゃないか。
あら、私に殺されるのならいいんでしょ?
You did say that, bud.
人の出現を悪用するのは良くないと思う。
Sojiro hung his head. This was not sane. If he did as she said, he would die from exhaustion before Kichi even had a chance to eat him.
私だって鬼じゃないわ。ほら、こっち向いて。
Hey, Sojiro, look at me. Hey. Bitch.
おまじない、かけてあげる。
It was the lightest of touches. Is she gonna boop him? Close enough for their breath and skin to come into contact. Oh, this is intimate.
Oh.
Zachary, he finished with a hushed voice. For one of them, this was rather mundane magecraft. For the other, it was a head-spinning sneak attack of intimacy. Okay, that was a bit strange. I giggled at the word breast, and my recording decided to stop on me. I guess it decided, hey, don't. You missed nothing, you just missed that line read, which I think we can actually. Yeah, there we go. That was very strange. Why it popped up a thing saying you are not allowed to record to this part of your computer, which is not true. Okay. Words that could not be produced by a normal larynx. Oh. You can tell this is Kinoku Nasu because we're having this intimate moment and he's talking about the larynx, carrying a peculiar weight to them reverberated against his eardrums. If words were given colors, these would have been the color of her name, blue. Sojiro's exhausted body and burning blood gently cooled.
飛ぶ、泳ぐ、駆け抜ける。チクタクチクタク、汽笛を鳴らせ。
I have no idea how this Ruby text is working.
星はいつでも北の空。どこまでも、いつまでも。
In reality, it took but a few seconds, but the sudden contact had felt a little longer until it ended.
よし、暗示成功！成功したはず！ここまで手応えがあったの初めてだし。
Oh, this was your first time.
アリスの小言もたまには役に立つじゃない。
A very merry Aoko, very merry Aoko. Hey, merry Aoko, everyone. Stood aside a very confused Sojiro. After he asked what the heck had occurred, she responded.
簡単な暗示よ。一時的に恐怖心を消しておいたから、高いところに登っても平気なはず。あの手の作業で一番足を引っ張るのは同様でしょ？恐怖も何も感じなければ、地上何メートルだろうと、平均台とそう変わらないってわけ。
That is potentially a very problematic ability. He seemed to get it. It actually all sounded Greek to Sojiro, but he accepted it as an explanation to her strange actions. He'd arrived at the summit of the track. At the height of nearly 200 feet, Sojiro had a bird's-eye view of the entire amusement park. He was able to spot Aoko's figure right away. In the plaza not so far from here, she seemed to be occupied with something conspicuous. Her surroundings lay still. The breadmen were still busy trying to figure out how to reach Sojiro by trial and error from the roller coaster's entrance. They had over 300 feet of distance to cover. Strong winter gales quickly dried the sweat on his brow, but he was drenched underneath his shirt. This much sweat was worth at least a half-mile run, not to mention all the scares he had experienced throughout the night. Felt a wave of relief, but not at the thought of Aoko destroying the Snark in this nightmarish park. He was simply happy that he could repay a bit of his debt from the House of Mirrors. Oh well, yeah, that's a signal, I'd say. A blue bullet rose from the plaza where Aoko was
合図
located.
だ
Sojiro stood up atop the tracks, pulled out the pouch he had stowed in his pocket, and tossed it forward. Without any regard for his questionable footing, he gave a mighty overarm pitch. The small pouch drew a parabolic curve in Aoko's direction, quickly becoming untied in midair. Inside the bag was the lock of her hair and a small stone weight.
高いところから風に乗せてくれればあとは何とかするから。
That hair blew. Aoko had said, but it was Sojiro's effort that had set the plan in motion. The tuft of hair remained airborne, drifting as if it was watching over its owner. Sojiro's job was done. He's remained concerned. You guys gotta watch your tenses. He remained concerned about the egg hovering over him, but there was nothing he could do about it. Sojiro breathed a sigh of relief and leaned forward to watch the rest of the plan unfold. But then,
むむ
in the corner of his eye, he thought he spotted something familiar approaching Aoko. Oh? Oh? What could it be? Yo, what's that pose? What's she
ルー
doing?
トセット。
Okay. Yo, that's cool! Yo! God, those effects.
ディレクト1層2層予備に3層魔力提供体現に固定
What is she doing?
循環よし射角よし術式安定大まかよし
A pattern began to carve itself into the brick street. The casting of an unprecedented incantation with unprecedented range. Keeping the rising tension contained within her chest, the fledgling mage snapped her fingers.
決めたツアープランスターマイン
Okay. She kneeled at the center of the formula and raised her head to the night sky. Not even a glimpse of the transmogrified fantasy land around her entered her vision now. Only one thing, one untouchable thing was reflected in her blue eyes.
実はずっと気になっていたことが
This is how their conversation started a few minutes prior. Sojiro began with a simple statement of fact. In truth, it really was the simplest of discrepancies. Between the reality of an hour ago and the illusion of the present, a difference both infinitesimal and infinite at the same time.
雲があったから勘違いしたんだろうけど
Is it the moon? It was something hiding in plain sight. Something both seemingly impossible in reality and unusual given its location. In this amusement park where every paradigm had shifted, something was brazenly flaunting its normalcy. It's the
今
moon.
夜は新月なんだ青崎
There we go. Heck yeah, I called it. I called it.
思えば初めっからその形だったものね
And it makes, and hey, it all comes back to like hey diddle diddle, right? The distance from the Earth to the moon was 238,900 miles. If it was truly identical to the actual moon, then this monster indeed lived up to its eerie reputation. A distance that far would have meant it would have no need to hide its form. It could flaunt its true form in front of all. But due to the very fact that it was hiding its true form, it meant it must have been within reach. That monster's camouflage implied that it sat within the reach of human hands.
こっちの最大射程はよくて600ってところだけど
At this point, it was time to give it all she had. Drawing on the energy surging through the park, she extended her firing arm. A blue firework launched into the air. Is she going to use the hair as like a launcher? Shut up. Looking at her hair dancing in the wind above, Aoko reached out her right hand as if to catch the night sky. A mage's own body made for the perfect catalyst. And for a female mage, the hair she had grown out over many years made for a particularly valuable and powerful source of fuel. This is not new. We heard about this in Stay Night. To use it, all she had to do was apply her will. She locked the fingers on both her hands together and shouted,
三層展開全術式連結起動
Yo? Yo? She hurled forth a clear challenge to bind the moon to herself. Shut up. This is rad. The mist began to whirl about in a vortex. The monster high above bore its fangs at the sight of the blue spell that appeared in midair.
見抜かれたですって。
By the time Alice had noticed the change, the hostility between Aoko and the Snark was palpable.
そうなら青子の勝ちよ。すぐに戻りなさい。
Uh-oh.
確かに雨雲を消したのはヒントの上げすぎだけど、それぐらいは多めに見て。スナーク
The fog continued to thicken with no sign of abating. The moon that floated in the night sky could not pardon such an insolent mage. As if the Lord of the Night would bow to such impudence, there was no staying its wrath at a challenge so flagrant.
スナーク
Uh-oh. It's out of control. The robin swooped in to give its report, but Alice waved it away. Her gaze was fixed on the transforming golden moon. I don't know if I'd call that golden, but alright. Her calls of restraint did not reach it. This fairy tale monster was beholden to nobody, and it would have no qualms unleashing its vast might upon its puny prey. Oh boy. The core of her magic bullet howled. The magic circuits within her body spun. Aoko fed the magical energy, scorching her nerves with imaginary flame. She was linked to the formula inscribed on the ground. The spell was read and executed the same as it always was, but its output was beyond reckoning. With this much firepower, even this mundane process would invite injury upon its caster. It was enough to burn up the nerves that were acting as the barrel.
でもいける
The imaginary heat had reached a terrifying temperature. Aoko trembled at this endless feeling, but would have to grin and bear it, lest their efforts come to naught. Aoko could no longer move. When she had learned the Snark's true form from Sojiro, she gave up any superiority a movable turret offered, instead opting to become a stationary cannon. This was the only way she could reach it. It was impossible to hunt the Snark unless she anchored her crest at this location and angle. At the same time, this action revealed that she was out of options. Once the fuse was lit, she'd have no choice but to fight to the bitter end. Aoko took a deep breath. This was the way she wanted it. Her preparations were complete. She'd be able to deliver this maelstrom of magical energy directly to the moon like a rocket payload. The third layer floating in midair served as the cannon's muzzle and sight. It would fire the magical energy once it reached criticality rather, and it allowed Aoko to adjust the angle of fire.
きれ
The moon became warped within her scope. It's using the fog to distort its form. As Aoko charged her magical energy, the ploy displayed its golden form as if to mock her. Come, worship the heavens, peerless scion of an innocent bloodline. For there it was, a point among the otherworldly sky, a mystical visage obfuscated by jade mists and azure clouds, called the greatest treasure known to the world of magecraft, a rarity more valuable than an entire kingdom. Crown Phantasm. I'm sorry, did they just drop a new type of phantasm? Okay. Okay. We have noble phantasms. We have reality phantasms. We have marble phantasm, that's what it is. And now we have crown phantasm. This is new. Yo, it's an upside down skull.
フラットスナーク
That's cool. Set apart from the very beginning, the world's greatest fabrication.
まだ早いけど
Holy crap. Her instincts screamed at her to delay no further. This fairy tale monster was the greatest of its kind and its true form was about to be exposed. Its open hostility indicated that I was making preparations for a counterattack.
もう動けない逃げを捨てての大栄翔先に撃たれたらそこで終わりだ
She had to shoot it down first. Magical energy was at 80%. The formula was operating normally. All that was left was to pull the trigger, but... The calm voice inside her head asked if that was really okay. She had one shot at this, and there was no going back. It was a battle of precision with no room for miscalculations. Even a tenth of a second of hesitation would tip the scales. Was she ready for the pain? Was she ready to deal with the fallout if she missed? Could she really even take down the moon with such a tiny bullet in the first place?
いい。とりあえず当たった後で考える。
Hey, that's what you do. Her eyes, fixed upon the moon, were filled with determination and an awareness that the moment she fired, the intense recoil would overwhelm her entire body. She shouted,
上等。出し惜しみはなし。目いっぱいぶん回すわ。
With every ounce of spirit she possessed, she fired the ultra long-range projectile into the sky. Whoa. And it hits that. The third layer embraced the magic bullet fired from the surface of the earth. The crest, an extension of Aoko's self, unleashed light to pierce the moon. However, What do you mean, however? What do you mean, however? What? An enormous blue canopy pulverized the beam. It returned the ether, that 3,000-degree flame, to nothing as it came in contact with the bullet. Ugh! The recoil of this grand magecraft literally boiled her blood. Her body couldn't handle it. Her heart stopped. Her brain went numb from pain and impact. Her nerves putrefied from end to end. But her magic crest revived them all by force.
氷で防がれた。
Even though her vision had gone white, she could still see it. Swallowing the blood in her mouth, Aoko looked up with a scowl. Big ball of ice. There it was, an enormous shield of ice and a sneering, deformed skull.
撃つのが遅すぎた。それとも早すぎた。盾を作られる前に撃てばよかった。それとも正面からじゃ無謀すぎた。どっちでもいい。
Oh, don't do it again.
一層、二層、再起動。
Oh no.
急いで。
Oh, this is gonna mess her up. There was no time to think or hesitate. The magical energy throughout the park began to gather. Aoko knelt, across from the tyrannical face of the moon. Aoko intuited that the ice had yet to fully form. Flat Snark still hadn't reached its full strength, which was exactly why.
まずい、まずい、まずい、まずい。
By accelerating the spell, Aoko had damaged her own body. Aoko sat up and braced herself for the pain caused by the load placed on the formula after linking with the Snark. All she could do was endure it. All because
あの氷、私のマックスよりもっと上だ。
Aoko had gotten a read on the relative strengths. Even if its volume of magical energy was identical, Snark's form, its mystic, was in a different league. Even if Aoko charged her energy to her absolute limit, she would barely make a dent in the ice wall. Meaning if Snark had gathered as much energy as it could, there was nothing she could do to prevent her annihilation.
ならその前に。
She loaded her next shot. She issued orders to the floating third layer. Ignoring the toll on her body, she began to accelerate the first layer formula. The role of her right hand's single layer was to absorb and store magical energy. The thick fog that drifted through the park was an ancient ether spewed out by Flat Snark's own body, but Aoko could pour it into her own formula. Aoko's body, which had integrated with the formula, took on an amount of magical energy that far surpassed its maximum capacity. It seethed in agony, or rather, it trembled in delight. For a mage, magical energy was a propellant to reach the realm of mystics, the expansion of internal time, the liquefaction of the self, the release from the physical, what one might call a near-death experience. Aoko stood face to face with reality on the boundary between it and such concepts. And that reality was here to break her will. To any bystander, the gap between them would be plain to see. The gun barrel named Aoko Ozaki. She had not a chance to chip away at that lump of ice. She accelerated the spell further. The skull grinned. That ice was no shield. It was something to be used to crush mages who did not know their place. The moon laughed as it prepared to crush not just Aoko, but the boy atop the roller coaster, as well as the park in its entirety. Her circuits were on the verge of going critical. Her body had been charged with a scorching power supply from her fingertips to her eyeballs. she would see to it that the bullet fired, that the Magecraft formula would be strengthened as quickly as her nerve's transmission speed would allow. A single attack was not enough. There was no way to shoot it from its flank, which meant there was only one solution. The third layer began to transform. It switched from direct to alternating current. Oh my god, we're doing AC/DC. The spell's supposed strong point was its ability to adjust its trajectory mid-flight, but right now all she wanted was numbers. Also, can I just say, remember how I kept saying that in the Natsuverse world it just continues to make magic just be technology? Yeah, that's the most direct parallel I think I've seen to that in a long time. Oh, that is a straight up, like, Iron Man, like, cannon. A blue sun shined down upon the amusement park. Beams of light at maximum output streaked forth to pierce the golden moon. Holding down the trigger, she continued to fire, taking in energy ad infinitum. This is incredible. Blue flames shot forth at critical level, but the ice would neither melt nor mar. No amount of sheer heat could make a dent in something formed from such a colossal amount of magical energy. Oh my god, the toll on her circuit sent them berserk and blood began to run free. The battle had become a tussle over the magical energy that filled the park. From the very beginning, this had been the Snark's home turf. The Snark had control over at least 80% of the space, while Aoko had 20 at best. The castle of ice descended as if to call the match. All she could do was delay the inevitable. She knew that she had been backed into a wall, and right now the only thing she could do was keep firing. Then again, perhaps not. There was another option. If she converted all of her magical energy into a defense, there was a tiny chance, no, not tiny, a great possibility in fact, that she could save just her. Clinging to that broken hope, Aoko continued to rotate her circuits. Time seemed to stop at the magical energy overdose. A second of intense pain lasted an eternity. Then, amidst everything... Right! I forgot about the weird red spirit. Something approached one step at a time. Something from among the park's shadows. Oh my god, the red reflecting in her eye. Something. She felt goosebumps from head to toe. The issue was no longer the ice overhead. In the midst of this stillness, the Red Death drew closer, step by ominous step. Her circuits in her mind began to rupture out of terror. The composition of her formula and soul began to rip apart. There it was, just behind her. Its footsteps came to a halt. It reached around and cupped her face in its blood-stained hands. Ooh, don't like that. She wanted to scream out with all her might. This is it. Nothing matters. I couldn't care less. Run or don't run, it doesn't matter. Quit hiding and reveal yourself. Use whatever you can and show no mercy. That was it. She had one final card to play. A miracle that would treat the ice like nothing more than a toy. gifted to her as a mere amusement. That was what the Red Death had come to kill. Using it would spell ruin, and not using it would mean death by ice. But why would Aoko hesitate? There were no conditions limiting her. There would be no price to pay by employing it here. She simply would cease to be herself. That was all. Humans love to exist in areas of gray. Dozens of electrical impulses disconnect in the brain every minute. Nothing lasts forever, not even oneself. It was not anything particularly worthy of disdain. It was not even anything remarkably worthy of being called taboo. What escaped her lips now was rage, bewilderment from the red silhouette. The girl let out an inaudible scream. Could true magic... Oh! True magic. Oh, we're going there, huh? Could true magic truly be her savior? What an opportunistic load of bull. After all, to begin with. Oh my god, this music. Indeed, Aoko was still in the dark when it came to that magic, whatever it was. Alright, I'm gonna be honest here. I need a quick reminder on Nasuverse True Magic. I need a quick reminder. True magic achieves things that cannot be realized in a given era. Alright, sounds good. That's all I need. I just needed a quick definition. Uh-oh. This is an amazing climax. Buddy, you're not looking at it. She woke from her momentary hallucination, the very illusion her breaking soul had shown her. Whining had the opposite effect on her. Her pride was now ablaze. Sojiro was right. Her opponent had put her in check, but she had done the same to it. It was clear why she was losing, so now all she needed was a counterplan well within her abilities. No matter the odds, she was not one to give up without giving it one last shot. Her numbed fingers clenched into a tight fist. She was betting against the house, an unreasonable gamble that should have made her question her sanity. If her first step was off by an inch, her body would be instantly vaporized. But she knew a boy who never fled. She knew of a steadfast courage that could shine its light, no matter how small, through any desperate situation. Yes, there was more than just herself to be concerned about. If that ice fell, it would mean the destruction of the park in its entirety. Everything he had achieved, everything he had risked and dared and happily put his life on the line for, would all be for naught. It's his stupid little rabbit face. Determination and confidence surged through her like electricity. She was in no mood to be crushed by a giant sheet of ice. If she was going to lose, she'd rather do so as the grandest firework possible. Aoko was a sore loser. At this point, she would rather burn herself to cinders than let it decide her end. She grunted in pain. Energy raged through her body. Her circuits were on the verge of disintegration. Inscribed upon her body, her magic crest was magecraft given physical form. It did not, however, stop with simply skin and flesh. It burrowed to the very marrow of her bones. A playful smile graced her lips. Oh, that's the face of someone who knows what they're doing. Her sense of reason had been turned upside down by the pain. That was only natural. She had to praise her own body for holding out so long while pushed beyond its limits. The skull face noticed the abnormality. Oh, that's cool. It finally recognized the challenge for dominance over this space. It laughed at the conceit it faced. Never did it expect a magician to challenge the great flat Snark, lord of vessels over a millennium, and in such an age of decline. She tried to catch her breath. She braced herself for the coming pain. She was going to smash that ice to pieces. Both had access to the same amount of magical energy. One of them was greatly outmatched, but...
出力装置に差があった。魔力の吸引、方針の規模で負けているのなら、単純な話、私をでかくするだけでいい。
Aoko grow?
チェンジ、ツアープラン。
Oh? Oh? Okay. Okay. Oh my god. Oh my god. The feedback would go beyond anything she'd experienced to date. Quite simply, her decision went beyond recklessness. She expanded both formula to maximum size. The first layer would transform into a giant vortex, swallowing up mist. The second layer would process it from one end and pump it into her, the barrel.
私の想定が甘かった。撃ち落とすなんて半端もいいとこ。この場合、跡形もなく打ち砕くった。
God, this music and everything. Holy crap. Oh my god, so many magic circles. The primeval magical energy responded in concert with her conviction. It formed the pattern of a writhing serpent, voiceless magical power flying the banner of revolution. She beckoned the great power of old to feast its eyes upon the land, for it was the first of the Trailblazers, the representative of a mankind that knew no fear and would rend all manner of mythic and mystic to naught.
貸し借りはここまでよ。嘘つきブージャム。
Sorry, what is that slur? She said it in Japanese too. What is a... I don't want to say that word. What is that word? What does it mean? A tall, spiny, long-lived desert tree native to northwest Mexico? What is... Oh! No, a boojum is from The Hunting of the Snark. Okay. Okay. I was like, what are you talking about? Okay. Sounds like a slur. For the newest magician commanded the principles of consumption and extinction. God, I love visual novels. An aberrant bullet of light melted through the castle of ice. Her barrel was tempered. Her control of magical energy was divine. Her veins, totaling 62,000 miles in length, or 2.5 times the circumference of the equator, accepted the flow of magical energy with avarice. The subsequent magic bullet swiftly flew straight into the moon. Oh, it doesn't like that. Death rose to the surface of the moon. A cry of terror, of indignation, echoed through the abandoned park. Reality was burned into the eyes of this creature of fantasy. As Aoko looked upon its vain attempt to struggle, she knew she had tasted victory. Victory despite her absolute reckless use of magical energy. The energy scales had been tipped to the breaking point, but nevertheless in her favor. Okay. Nice. Nice. Oh, what's happening? Oh my god. Shatter, 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 shatter. The skyscraper scattered into atomized dust. The island, its unattainability extolled, had swallowed whole the despair of its many challengers. And that which remained of this once proud thing that boasted of its untouched knowledge azure mist bemoaned its demise. The ice canopy in the sky crumbled. The Snark hunting bullet jumped over the moon. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god, it all comes back to Hey Diddle Diddle. Its throes of death sounded like a roaring sea reverberating across this fairy tale land. I'm lightheaded right now. I'm actually lightheaded. Holy crap. Oh my god. The battle was over. The thick fog dissipated, and the shattered ice melted away before it hit the ground. A lethal bullet had toppled the Night King along with his throne, affording him no time to grieve his loss. The oil of the moon, the untouched, flat Snark. The dreamscape that had begun with its resurrection ended with its demise, drawing a close to this nightmare. Oh my god, that was really good. How will the rest of the game even come close to this? I truly wonder.
さすがに無茶だ。
You could say that. Flat on her back, Aoko looked up at the night sky. She lay there perfectly still, not able to move a single finger. When she tried, her whole body screamed out in agony. She was completely empty of magical energy, and her magic crest had come to a halt. She estimated that it would likely require a whole day to recover all of her bodily functions. Sadly, all she could really do in that moment was take a breath. At least her chest was swelling with pride. She had gone toe-to-toe with a fairy tale monster and had emerged victorious. The battlefield conditions had favored her, it was true, and there was no denying that Aoko had come a long way in the last 6 months.
それはそれとして、アリスには謝っとかないと。
Yeah, I kinda killed your trump card.
黒いって壊したらそれっきりだものね。
Flat Snark would never again return to this world. It was an insanely rare item, so invaluable it would have been impossible to price for auction at the association in London. Aoko had sent Alice's priceless treasure of the Magecraft world to oblivion. I mean, that sucks, but also you used it, so. Needless to say, things had gotten more than a little out of hand.
まあ、で、
They both agreed to the fight, so Alice would probably not complain. Even if she was furious, she would never be so undignified as to show it. The second Aoko relaxed, her fatigue finally caught up with her. She did everything in her power to fight off the overwhelming drowsiness. Aside from a few minor internal injuries, her body was miraculously unscathed, so much so she felt she could probably stand up and dust herself off after a bit of rest. The golden moon continued to burn in the night sky.
正体は油だものね。そりゃいつまでも燃え。
Something dropping? Aoko's bleary eyes went wide in astonishment. She was still unable to lift a finger.
スナークを見つけたベイカーも最後は一緒に消えるんだっけ。
Oh no. Oh no. She sighed in resignation. Aoko accepted that her final stand left her with only 10 seconds before she burned to ash too. Elsewhere, just a short moment prior, buffeted by strong winds atop the roller coaster, Sojiro gravely peered down at the ground.
むむ
All he could muster was a single murmur. He could see Aoko on top of some drawing on the ground and...
なんだあれいくらなんでも頑丈すぎないか
In the distance, there was something familiar in the direction of the ruined House of Mirrors. Oh my god, there's no way the puppet's back. Sojiro's job to throw Aoko's hair from a great height was complete. While not the most impressive of tasks, it was absolutely a matter of life or death. And to top it all off, just thinking about how he was going to get back down to the ground was making him dizzy. He had experienced more than enough trouble for one day.
いやでも
Oh, this is him seeing it happen? He was flustered as he stood atop the swaying bridge. A skull suddenly appeared in the sky above. On the ground, you could see a circling blue light with Aoko Ozaki in the middle of it. And one more thing. A shadow was approaching Aoko that only someone from his vantage point could see. A shadow missing the lower half of its body. The upper half of its body was slowly oh my god. Yo, that's gross. The upper half of its body was slowly clawing its way to Aoko. They were still over 600 feet apart. Unfortunately for Aoko, she completely failed to notice it approaching from behind. He was sure of what it was now. There was only one thing in the park that would chase Aoko and not him. The puppet. His mind ran in circles. It was a perfectly reasonable reaction. Any grip on reality he might have had left was long lost when Aoko started firing beams of light at the monstrous moon. Aoko's merciless... Okay, there might be something wrong with my external hard drive. This isn't good. This is the second time it died now. Thankfully not during a hype moment, right? But I've switched over to my other hard drive for now. At any rate, Sojiro couldn't fathom the situation. Should he head back to the entrance of the roller coaster and warn Aoko about the incoming threat? No, there was no way he would make it in time. And to make matters worse, there was a horde of bread down there waiting for him. That's hilarious without context. And it may very well have been the case that Aoko was already aware of the puppet and would take it out as soon as it got closer. If she was, Sojiro was sure he would only be in the way. It did not seem like there was anything he could do to help. And beyond that, Aoko was not the only one in danger. He was in quite the predicament himself. You can't go home again. The road home was never as safe as one thought. It was as true here as it had been in the mountains. The path he was on was no exception. As risky as the ascent had been, it was even more dangerous to go back down. There was no time to be worrying about others. His shaking legs reminded him that only 200 feet separated him from death. His head was pounding. This was reckless and stupid. Having been raised in the mountains, he was more sensitive to danger than anyone raised in the city, and just thinking about what he was about to do made his throat seize up. There was only one thing he could say for sure. Oh my god, is he running down? Oh my god. Oh my god. With a sobbing shout, Sojiro started making his way down the 200-foot frame of the roller coaster. That's terrifying. His race toward death accelerated. He never meant to speed up, but the downward slope propelled him forward. Holy crap. Oh my god. Oh my god. It was too late for regrets. Now that he was running, he had no choice but to go even faster. And time was not on his side. He would never have made it in time if he'd taken the long way down, never mind the breadmen crowding the exit of the roller coaster. With the exits blocked, the outcome would be the same whether he went slowly or quickly. There was no reason to rush to his death as desperately as he did. So what if it was futile? Sojiro cleared the minds of doubts from his mind. He turned his attention to what he could do, keep his footing and to try to arrive at the bottom as quickly as he could. He had no idea what impulses were driving his stiff limbs. He just focused on the moment, pushing past the fear and the cold logic. At his core, he was the kind of person to deal with problems head on, apply directly to the forehead. There would be time to think about consequences later. Oh, right. But I forgot about this. Hesitation was not his only obstacle. The worst possible hindrance appeared at a time when not focusing on the track would mean its certain death. Sojiro sensed something wrong with the egg he had been so studiously observing out of one eye. Something had changed, and at the very moment he realized it, Sojiro stumbled, then instinctively caught himself. It was a miracle he had not fallen. Descending a roller coaster on foot was an act of suicide. The egg stayed right by his side, so close it was likely to collide with him. Though he was trying as hard as he could not to look at it, he could not help but feel unease that the door-like decoration in its center was gradually opening. He cursed his rotten situation, and yet he refused to slow down. He ran even faster, glaring at the egg on his side. Sojiro was baffled to find that he was smiling. Perhaps it had something to do with Aoko's charm. Sojiro could not tell one way or the other. He could still feel Aoko's fingers on his skin. The trust and expectation she placed in him was etched into his heart, but what spurred him on was something entirely different. This all stemmed from a much deeper problem. It was something inside him he could not understand at the time, but it would eventually come to terms with one day. He carefully judged the distance as he ran down the track of death. But the distance between what? That went without saying. It was the distance between himself and the one thing that could save his life. He told himself he was going to do it over and over like a mantra. Sojiro could not believe himself. What he was about to do was incredibly stupid. But what is stupid when smart is not an option? That's a really good line! That's such a good line! Amidst it all, he laughed at how pointless such self-reflection was now. Temporary confusion, a psychological thrill ride, both had laid his soul bare. What really mattered? But a simple man gets by without deep thought. Sojiro's primitive mind did not crave success or reward. For him, it was simple.
Yes.
He was doing it because he wanted to, not because he felt obliged to those around him. His desire to live his way was his and his own. If the egg had been equipped with a vocal function, it would have gasped in shock at what happened next. The boy who had only tried to escape up to this point suddenly shifted his weight. He pointed his feet outward instead of inward. On the edge of one rail, he crouched ever so slightly to maintain momentum at the gaze of the floating... I'm sorry, is he going to grind? He's not grinding, is he? Okay, no, good. If he was grinding, I would have literally came and shid. He soared through the night sky. It was a flight that lasted a mere 1.5 seconds. A cordless bungee jump from 100 feet above the ground. His destination... the only thing that would stop his fall. The giant flying egg. He shrieked, this time out of elation, as he desperately clung to the egg's surface. Just earlier, the cold-blooded witch had told him that without fear, the top of a building would feel no different than a balance beam. This from the same witch that would have been left speechless had she witnessed this spectacle. Fearlessness is one thing, recklessness was another. He followed it up with an act that would irritate her for days to come. Clinging to the egg, he shifted his gaze away from it. He felt the rapid descent. Sojiro, focusing on his half-shut eyes on the ground, leaped off the egg once they were a few feet from the ground, turned back to it, careful to re-establish eye contact. That's ridiculous. What the frick? Something so unbelievable, though to Sojiro, the elevator at the department store and the mysterious floating egg were both just moving objects, virtually indistinguishable from one another. I am so sorry that this keeps happening. I think OBS has an error, and it's fine because it instantly stops recording, so we only lose a little bit of time, but this sucks. I hate this. OBS why now of all times. At least it's fine. At least it's fine. The shortcut that almost cost him his life had paid off. Sojiro took off running the second his feet touched the ground. The puppet after Aoko was the only thing on his mind. He paid no mind to the moonlight in the sky. Oh, which is gonna... yeah, or the egg, furious about being used and seconds away from self-destructing and blasting fragments all over the place. Did she say nani? What, like, she slurred it. Can I hear that again? Yeah, that's a weird... Aoko's dumbfounded expression spurred Sojiro on. That's like she could barely speak. The curse was complete. The empty egg began to sing its warning to let them know there was no escape. Ooh. Ooh, shrapnel from the egg exploded through the air. The ode to Queen Alice that Alice... Oh, yeah, Queen Alice, huh? That Alice had engraved into Dumpling quickly robbed him of his senses.
それはそれとして
He snapped back to the task at hand and ran to Aoko, still lying on the ground. His legs ran of their own accord, though he could not have ever stopped them anyway since he could no longer feel them.
お前驚くほどしつこいぞ
Oh my god. And it's going to get the puppet. That's what I was thinking. I was actually thinking about that, because it's like if it's going to go for something that looks like her. This was amazing. This whole sequence was amazing. The scrambled murder case. Piles of rubble became flowers of light blooming from the earth. Yo, is my man copping a feel? The final curtain drew close, and then the defeated left the battleground. Had Alice Kuonji seen it up close, it would have left her beside herself. The two had escaped by a hair's breadth. The only person in position to witness that rare mutual destruction was the girl who had been saved from it. The boy who had never stopped running paid it no mind.
死ぬかと
The safety of the girl in his arms meant infinitely more to him than the miraculous way in which he saved her. This was so good. This was so good. This whole sequence here was so good. The moon did not wait for dawn to set. The ornamental texture of the fairy tale kingdom faded away. All of the illusions returned to the way they were before, from the ostentatious chords reverberating through the streets to the puppets welcoming their guests. Peace and quiet reigned once more over a forgotten kingdom, never to be awakened again. So, someone pointed out, and it's very obvious, that the House of Mirrors section there was very clearly meant to be done in a school, but they switched out to an amusement park as not to just do a repeat of Emiya versus Rin, right? Because, yeah, it would have been the exact same there. Turning this whole thing into amusement park was the sickest thing ever. Out flickered the ember lights of a late-night dream, even the electrical lamps that illuminated the park. Together, they watched it disappear. Sojiro lay on the ground, desperately gasping for air like a fish out of water. Well, a fish out of water wouldn't be gasping for air. Well, they're gasping in the air. The curse of the exploding egg had numbed his pain, and he was understandably exhausted after all he had experienced. He looked like he could be blown away by the lightest of breezes. While Aoko was also exhausted, she was still in better shape. Focused on taking deep, even breaths, she was already working to recover her strength.
あのさ
She addressed Sojiro indifferently as her gaze remained on the amusement park. The abruptness of it was a bit theatrical in nature. She wanted to look at him as she spoke, but her pride was simply too great.
あなたなんかすごいことしなかった
The moment she had accepted death had seemed like an eternity. She was beside herself in shock at how indifferent she had been as the shards rained down from the moon. But a reassuring voice had snapped her back into reality. Why did he do it? What was he thinking? What moronic things did he have to do to pull it off? She had no answers for these questions, lying on the ground as she was. All she knew was that he had more than made up for his failure in the House of Mirrors, and then some, in those fateful final moments. She addressed him hoping to find answers, but found herself unable to probe any further. To dig any deeper would feel like defeat, which is why it was so unlike her to ask him in the first place. Lucky for her, Sojiro had neither the capacity nor sensibility to understand how egocentric she was being.
すごいってそれは青崎の方だろ
He stuttered between labored breaths. It was taking him so much effort just to breathe that he could not address her properly. She watched him out of the corner of her eye. Thinking back on it, the boy had performed the same role each time. Each and every time he did what he could in spite of his fecklessness. It was far more admirable than her nearly suicidal tactics, even if she did defeat her opponent. He did not even recognize how extraordinary his last act of courage was.
提案。あいつをやっつけるのに協力したら、俺のことは見逃してくれる？
At the very least, he had the courage to keep trying whatever he could. A spectator might have viewed him as a supporting actor. His actions were not exactly memorable. But the lead actress he supported did not see it that way.
まあね、認めたくないし、口になってもっとしたくないけど。
Such inspired actions were wasted in a supporting role. This guy really pulled off the impossible, and was so amazing that she wanted to shout it as loudly as she possibly could for the world to hear.
青崎？
ほんと、人畜無害もどうすぎると侮れないわ。
All Aoko could do was sigh. How could she not? Even she was forced to admit that the way he'd snatched her from the jaws of death was, well, kind of dashing.
評価、甘めだけど。
Truth be told, he was a lunatic for doing what he did. She steadied her breathing and composed herself. She was in bad shape, and she had her pride as a mage to consider, which is why she needed to maintain an air of dignity when making a proclamation.
しずきくん、見逃すのは今日だけって話だったけど、あれ、なしでいいわ。とりあえず、命は助けてあげるから。
She hastily extended her right hand. It was either to shake his or to help him up. However, Sojiro did not take her hand but instead stood up on his own. This night, despite the sheer insanity he had just experienced, his face had not once looked as incredulous as it did now.
何そのリアクションは。
I can't touch your hand, I have to marry you first. She stammered, worried that she might have deeply embarrassed herself. Sojiro's gaze was fixed upon Aoko. A problem had dawned on Aoko. Though she normally hated being stared at, this time she did not mind. Rather, she was enjoying the warmth in his eyes and felt like it was something she could almost come to appreciate. Don't you get it? This isn't just about friendship, and I didn't mean he only likes you either. Believe me when I say that Sonoji really... Oh no! The conversation came rushing back. It was a memory better left forgotten.
いかん、それは違う。
Pushing Tobimaru's words out of her mind, Aoko turned towards Sojiro.
それとこれは別だから。私はあんたのこととか、ほんとどうでもいいんだから。
Oh, she is super tsundere. Puzzled, Sojiro tilted his head.
さっき嫌いだって言われたけど。
He responded matter-of-factly to her sudden declaration. She certainly had pointed that out, and to his face no less. It had a mere figure of speech. It had been a mere figure of speech that he was not meant to take literally, but now is not the time to belabor the point.
そうじゃなくて、あなたが私に惚れてても期待しないでって言ってるの。
Yet belabor it she did. Aoko blushed slightly, realizing how inane she was being. She wondered how she ended up in this position. And yet, she knew that she had to get this off her chest. All that was left was to politely wait for his response. I can't date you. Such heartbreakingly painful words were too much for the simple boy to hear. His shoulders slumped as if his world was coming to an end, or so Aoko thought. On the contrary, Sojiro was sitting there deep in thought.
俺が青崎に惚れてるって？
Sojiro murmured the words as if they were a magic spell. She shot right back with an affirmative. After a moment of deep contemplation, the boy turned to the expectant girl and said,
なんで？
He had to be joking, but he was not. He was completely serious. He liked her, but he didn't like her? Of course the vice president had jumped to conclusions. That boy had no interest in romance. He probably didn't even know what that was. She was so incredibly embarrassed by how confused Sojiro still appeared to be. Her rosy complexion spread through her entire body.
うん。もう一度聞くけど、なんで？
Oh my god.
そりゃこっちが聞きたい
The forward C. That's her forward C.
飛び丸の大バカ野郎
Look at that frame data. Just like that, she had lost her cool and given into an unjustifiable outburst. It was time to seal off the area and destroy all the evidence. Aoko's embarrassment devolved into sheer panic, and her grudge against Tobimaru suddenly manifested as criminal assault. She lashed out with a punch that could have taken down a bird mid-flight. More specifically, it was a brutal right hook. Aoko blinked. Her blow had connected with something solid, snapping her out of her reverie. Her temper had lashed out at the completely defenseless Sojiro. It had been a splendid blow with all her weight behind it, knocking him out cold. Oh my god, there he goes. Oh my god, that damage. Sojiro groaned, crumpling to the ground. Her punch finished the job that the curse had started. If not for the discomfort on his face, he appeared almost to be sleeping. Aoko convinced herself that he was napping, not concussed.
いっか
Well, whatever.
通りになったもんね
Oh my god. The tension in her shoulders eased away as she looked down at Sojiro. A ton had gotten in her way over the course of today, but the day was saved for now. With nobody left to butt heads, she felt exhaustion finally overtake her.
うわ歩いて帰れるかな私
Her fatigue was enough to make her complain out loud. When she thought about it, she realized that this was the first time she'd used up all of her magical energy, and the first time she had participated in a battle of this scale without any prior preparation. Though in truth,
私一人じゃどっちも相打ちだったっけ
she felt somewhat proud as she whispered those words. Normally, it was something she would beat herself up over, but instead she simply shrugged her shoulders with a bitter smile. After all, it was thanks to the person sleeping by her side.
ね聞こえてないわよね
As if the night had swallowed her voice before it reached him, she received no response, 'cause you knocked him out cold. Confident, she continued in an even quieter voice.
そのありがとう十分に助けてもらったわ
He has a concussion. Of course, there was no response from Sojiro. She was not expecting one. Because his brain was bleeding. Saying it for the record was enough. This is hilarious. Aoko watched Sojiro sleep for a while, then pulled something out of her pocket. It was the palm-sized glass bottle her roommate had given her, which she opened with a pop.
でもそれとこれとは別だから
Leaving behind words colder than a winter chill at night, she called out his name. She barely sensed the bottle moving. As the silhouette of the fallen boy appeared to blur, she got the feeling that the weight of the bottle had increased slightly.
うわどうなってんだろうこれ
What appeared to be a human form could clearly be seen inside the glass. Alice Guanji's tools were mystics that confounded even the most knowledgeable of mages. As soon as Aoko tried to analyze them with logic or reason, she was already out of her depth. Knowing this all too well, Aoko closed the bottle and watched the boy disappear as if by some magic trick.
まったくこんなの手品じゃなくて魔法だって
She muttered as she looked into the magical bottle. Its weight had not changed significantly, and she had no idea how it worked, but the one thing she did know was that there was a human being inside it. Its light weight was almost unnerving, closer to empty air than a human being. It's about as heavy as one would expect if they bottled a summer breeze. Though that did fit her image of Sojiro perfectly.
アリスの言う通り
She muttered to no one in particular as she recalled the past.
ほんと私らしくない
Aoko wore a bittersweet smile. Her usual moodiness was gone. It was a dangerous world out there. It's good to have someone to keep her on her toes. With a wry chuckle, she flicked the magic bottle with her finger and set off walking. Well, that's one way to get him home. She could hear a bell in the distance signaling the end of the play. An ephemeral dream gave way to reality. In the grand scheme of things, it had been but an instant. As the actors exited stage left, the last lights silently flickered out. And so, the long-dead amusement park played its final role as a memory for a boy and a girl. That whole sequence was amazing. So good. So good. All right. Well, now here's the thing. Apparently, this is the point where the Japanese streaming guide says, hey, you can't record anymore. But here's the thing. There's nothing that says we can't for English. Let's just say we're going to continue uploading for now. If worse comes to worse, we will have an alternative way for you to experience it with me. Okay? So just watch for any announcements, right? That's how it's going to go. Anyways, guys, we'll see you next time for some more Let's Play Witch on the Holy Night with Like a Dog. We'll see you then. Ciao.